Hi, welcome to the training on how to grow your business with podcasts. My name is Angela Lewis. I am one of the hosts in the LOE group, and I am so excited to be a part of this community and to share what I've learned about being a podcast guest. Now, in this training, I've been asked a series of questions. So I'm going to go through those questions, show some examples, and then share with you how you can grow your business through podcasts. So the first thing that a lot of people ask is, what are the benefits of being a guest on a podcast for growing your business? And how can being a guest on a podcast help you reach your target market? Some of the benefits of being a guest on a podcast are you get to build brand awareness. You're able to practice speaking, but you're also able to connect with your target market in a very in-depth way, because you're able to have this long-form content where you share about who you are, not only your business, but who you are and what makes a difference for the people that you serve. So podcasting is a great way for you to explain who you are, but also for people to really, really get to know you. Something else that I was asked is, how do we find podcasts that are relevant to our industry, our niche? And then how do you pitch yourself to podcasts? So how do you even find the podcast? Well, the way that you find the podcast is through Google. You can search on Apple Podcasts, and you can also search Spotify, Google Podcasts, but using specific keywords. That will be very important. Let me show you an example. So here we are on Google, and if we put in business, if we put in top business podcasts, we see it pops up. We also see 1.2 million people have searched for the other 1.2 million results for this. And you can see the top business podcasts. But you want to be more specific. So let's say your business is around marketing. So let's go top marketing podcast. And now we see a series of marketing podcasts. And you can click on one of them, read the description, want the blue fit. I digress podcast. And it tells you about the podcast. So you can determine if that podcast, in fact, makes sense for you to try to reach out to and pitch. There are databases that you can pay for that will give you the contact information for the host. But if you're just trying to see what podcasts are in your market, what podcasts exist that you can begin to familiarize yourself with, then Google is one way. Another way, of course, is to go to Apple Podcasts. So this is Apple Podcasts. If we put in marketing, we'll continue to use that example. And these are what we'll find are the marketing podcasts that are in Apple Podcasts. So we're going to go to show all. And now you can scroll through and see all of these podcasts related to marketing, related to business, influence, selling on Amazon, build your tribe. It's a lot of different podcasts out there. So the way that you research is you can go to Apple, you can go to Spotify, you can go to Google to find out more information about what podcasts exist. Listen to those podcasts. Sometimes hosts will have contact information. So there's Instagram, there's her website with show notes, there's her Facebook page. That requires time to look it up and to connect with her, but you can absolutely reach out and connect if there's a podcast that you're interested in, right? So if you have the time to do all of the research and to find the different podcasts, this is one method that you can utilize. So the next question that I was asked is, what are some best practices for preparing for a podcast interview? Oh, I love this question. And how can you ensure that we deliver value to the audience? And how can we ensure that we deliver value to the audience? So what are the best practices for preparing, and how can we ensure that we deliver value to the audience? The first thing when preparing for the first thing when preparing for an interview is that you have reviewed the interview, you've listened to a few past episodes, you have connected with the host on LinkedIn, and you have a really clear idea of what you're talking about and what your key talking points are. I believe that conversation should be free flowing, but I also believe that it's important to have some very clear, crisp stories. So step one, make sure you understand the host and the host's goal for the podcast. Remember, the podcast isn't simply about you. You're there to add value and to give valuable information. Step two, check all of your equipment at least an hour before. You want to make sure your internet is strong, the lighting's okay, there's not a dog barking or something crazy happening outside that's going to impede your audio. So check everything before. And then three, make sure that you are aware of what's coming up for you. At the end of the podcast, you always want to have a great call to action, and you want to be able to leave something valuable with the host and with the audience. And so be really clear about what you're going to ask them to do at the end of the interview. So the second part of that question is, how can you ensure that you deliver value to the audience? Just be authentic, right? Just be authentic about what you've done, who you are. You don't have to make it seem like things are bigger than what they are, more grandiose. Just be honest about who you are. People love connecting with people who they can relate to. So be relatable. And the most value that you can provide is what you've learned from your experience and a place where they can go to learn more from you. So be prepared to give and be prepared to just be honest about what's been going on for you and how what you've learned can help them. Keep in mind, every time you speak on a podcast, it's about how you can help them and how they can use what you've learned to grow in some way, depending on what your business is. Your business is designed to help them grow in whatever way that is. So the next question is, how can we use podcast appearance to build our personal brand and establish ourselves as thought leaders in our industry? The best way to use the podcasting strategy to grow your brand is to do a lot of it. People sometimes think that you go on one or two podcasts and then everybody's going to follow you. You're going to get 2 million, followers, and you're going to get everyone knocking at your door, asking to buy your product or service. But when you are building a brand, so remember, we're talking about the brand building process, not the established brand process. When you're in the process of building your brand, you need as much attention as you can possibly get. You need to become really confident and comfortable with sharing the business that you have, the transformation that occurs for your customers, and how you're different in your market. And so the best way to build is to continue building. I ask people all the time, at what point are you going to stop talking about your business? Never. You're going to continue to talk about it forever. And so podcasting is an incredible way to do that because it's long form. And it allows you to really deep dive into who you are and about the way that your business helps other people. Keep that in mind. The second part of that question is, how do you establish yourself as a thought leader? It's giving really clear examples about how what you've done has helped people. It's giving a contrarian view to what's going on in the market. So maybe you have a really different way that you approach helping people become speakers, or maybe you have a very different way that you approach engineering, right? Maybe you're a civil engineer by trade, but you have a unique way to help people build infrastructure in communities. Having really clear examples, statistics, and case studies will help you become viewed as a thought leader. And leaders are all about helping build other people up as leaders and transform other people. So the conversation has to be around how this work helps others. Remember, giving is at the core of building. Okay, The next question, how can we leverage our podcast appearance to promote our business and increase our visibility online? How can we leverage our podcast appearance to promote our business and increase our visibility online? The way that you can use your podcast appearance to promote your business is have something, again, to give away and to utilize that long form content and repurpose it in multiple ways. So for example, you have a 45-minute interview. Well, there'll be various sound bites. You'll have those stories that you've discussed. Take 1 minute, 2-minute clips and repurpose that content. You can create reels for all of the social media platforms. You can embed those in emails that you send out to your list. Or you can also send those to prospective clients when they're asking to learn more about who you are and the services that you provide. So the best way that you can leverage to gain visibility is to maximize your visibility by constantly posting about the interview that you had. The next question is, what are some strategies for engaging with the podcast audience and building relationships with the host and listeners? So one of the ways to engage the audience is to have something that we call a lead magnet or a downloadable resource that they can utilize and implement what's on there today. Something that's action-oriented and that's actually really helpful. So maybe you have a client that said it would be great if they had a checklist for a specific process that you teach on. If you help them publish books, do you have a checklist for a process? So then you're able to offer that checklist on your landing page, on your website, and they're able to download it. And then that starts the lead nurturing process. So remember, having something valuable is how you engage the audience, and then also how you engage the host. The way you build relationships with the host. I think about it like this. Imagine you're going to a party. A friend told me this, and I love it because I think it's so on point. Imagine you go to a party and the host of the party, you walk into their house, they open the door and you completely disregard them and act like they're not there. You just want to go and talk to everyone else. That'd be kind of rude. So instead, you let the host know how appreciative you are. You let the host know how much you value them, and you seek to build a relationship with them. So how do you build that relationship with the host? First, follow them on their social channels. Every host that I've ever talked to needs and wants more followers. Like and review, leave a review on their podcast. Once you've had an interview with them, once you've listened to their podcast, leave them a review. It takes maybe 2 minutes to do something, and then let them know that you left them a review. Oftentimes, hosts take screenshots of those and they repurpose that for their social so they can get more followers. And then the last way, when we talk about building the relationship with the host, after your interview, contact them and schedule a follow-up call to talk more in depth about ways that you could possibly work together if they have a business, but ways that you can help them. You want to always be seen as someone who shows gratitude for them allowing you to come on their platform, but then also how can you help them out? Because hosts and all people actually need support as well. So that's how you can build a relationship with the host and with the audience. And remember that it's the long game. This is not something that happens quickly overnight. It's really something that happens over time. Okay, the next question is, how can we measure the impact of our podcast appearance on our business growth, and what metrics should we track? So the first metric worth tracking is feedback from the host. Again, I'm a big believer in host relationship first, audience second. Some people will tell you, like, find the audience, go to the place with the biggest audience. And I'm a believer in go and build a relationship with the host, and the host will open you up and walk you into doors of their network. This has happened so many times for me and for people that we've worked with. They have formed joint ventures with hosts. They've invited the host to their workshops, which is a lead generation strategy, which I'll show you before we get off the webinar. I'll show you some lead generation strategies that you can think about. They've also sent the host a thank you note, set up follow-up calls, and have formed partnerships and had a series of interviews from one interview because they had such great rapport. So do not underestimate the relationship with the host. So you want that feedback. The second piece of feedback that you'll receive is people reaching out to you on social media. The metric that you can look at is your followers increasing, how many people download the item on your call to action. If you have a community, how many people showed up in your community after your interviews. And so when you think about the various touch points that could occur from social media growth to downloads, to people reaching out to you, to the host, being engaged with the host, there are various metrics worth looking at. And of course, sales, right? That's important as well. Depending on what your product or service is, you can clearly quantify sales that have occurred, but understand that all of those metrics are important because some people are ready to buy immediately and you might get a direct sale. Other people who've never heard of you before have to be warmed up. People like to buy from those they know, like, and trust. So they need to get to know you, they need to like you, and you have to build trust with them before they're willing to make a purchase. So you can't always expect people to buy immediately because that's unlikely in terms of the way that people consume information and products and services. There's a process for that, but there's sales, there's followers, there's feedback from the host in terms of the quality of the interview and the quality of the relationship they want to continue having with you. The next question, how can we use our podcast appearance to generate leads, drive traffic to our website, and increase conversions? I'm going to show you this lead generation document, and this will help you think about the different ways you can generate leads for your business. What you're looking at here is what we like to call the playbook. I believe that everyone needs a playbook when they are planning to execute on a strategy. In LOE community, there's a playbook, and this is the playbook that we utilize with our clients. But what's most important, this tab in our playbook is the lead generation strategies plays that you can run. Meaning you can use these strategies depending on who you're talking to and depending on what makes sense for your business or what you have coming up and what you have going on. So what we have on the left column are the sample calls to actions, which are the lead generation strategies. So do you have a community that you want people to join? Do you have live events that are coming up? Do you have virtual events? We highlighted the top 2 for this particular person because these are the ones that make the most sense for his business, but everyone has a different playbook for what makes sense for their business. Do you have a free download? Is there a survey? Do you want to get information from your target audience? Maybe you have a book coming out and you're looking for people to fill out a survey about their experience living abroad, right? And you help people travel abroad, and that's your niches. I help people travel abroad and build community in different parts of the world and reach that freedom that they desire. So that's your business and your brand, for example. So maybe you'll have them fill out a survey about their experience traveling, what apprehensions do they have, what things are they excited about. And in filling out that survey, you're able to capture their information and begin to build that rapport and trust. Are you writing a book? Do you have chapters of your book that you can give away? Maybe the first 2 chapters to people. You give them a discount code. Do you have an affiliate program? This is something you could work out with the host. So maybe you have an affiliate program where the host recommends your business and they get a percentage of the sales. Can you swap services with the host? So we have the lead generation strategies and then host partnership strategies. Can you swap services with the host? Are there potential joint ventures? Does the host have access to an audience of people that you serve? that you can then help serve as well and create a product or service that works for the client, but you serve one part of the execution and the host serves the other part of the execution of that joint venture. And then, is there a white label opportunity? So do you provide a service that can be a part of a service that the host has, if the host is a business owner? And then you can white label your service as a part of their service. So maybe they have a marketing company. So maybe your business is you help people build websites, and the host has a marketing podcast. Well, the host helps people run ads. For example, they run Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads or whatever ads, but you help people build websites. Well, maybe the host can add websites as a part of their service offering and still use their business, and it's just white labeled through your company. So these are different ways that you can generate leads for your business while using podcasts. Because remember, it goes beyond simply just the podcast. It's about relationships with hosts, relationships with listeners. The next question, there's only a couple of more, so stay with me. How can we continue to build a profile as a podcast guest and expand our reach to new audiences? So how can we continue to build our profile as a podcast guest and expand our reach to new audiences? The best way to build your profile as a podcast guest is to do as many podcasts as possible. Really having that SEO, that search engine optimization, because podcasts are distributed to so many different platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube. I mean, YouTube's the second largest search engine in the world. And so when people Google your name, all of the interviews that you've been on will come up and will show up. And that will allow you to build your profile as a podcast guest. And by staying in contact with hosts, it allows you to have more interviews on the same show. You'll be surprised how many, if you have a great conversation, how many hosts will ask you to come back in a couple of months to talk about what else has been going on. So one interview doesn't always mean one interview. One interview could turn into 2 or 3 down the line. In addition, podcast hosts have their own community. So being on one podcast will give you the exposure and create this domino effect that will give you an opportunity to be on other podcasts as well. So I hope you've seen how being a guest on podcasts can help grow your business. I received a few specific questions from the LOE community. So these are a few questions that were asked specifically from community members. So I wanted to bring those up as we close out today's training. First, someone asked, I recently did an interview on a podcast. The podcast wasn't necessarily in my niche. Should we only be doing podcasts in our niche? No. The simple answer is no. I believe that you should do podcasts in all of the areas in which you have expertise. And with your niche, you can focus on that. So maybe 60% in your niche, and then the other 40%. As a woman, I can speak about things that are connected to women. As an African-American woman, I can speak about things connected to African-American women or to being an African-American. I can speak to things about living abroad. I can speak about family. We can speak about so many different things. Your business will always come up in those conversations. So you don't have to hyper-focus on your niche, because in talking about who you are in a more broad level, people will have an opportunity to build trust and really get to know you better. So go broad, but have a focus with some of the podcasts in your niche. And the second question was, she allowed me to share my podcast name and will put my social media in the show notes. Is there anything else that I should do to help my business grow from this experience? Stay connected to the host, repurpose the content, also add your website to the show notes, and add something of value that people can utilize and put into action immediately. All those things will help you maximize the podcast interview and to grow your business. So thank you all so much for joining this session on how to grow your business with podcasts. I hope you found some of this information valuable. Please let me know if you have any questions. Again, my name is Angela Lewis. I am one of the hosts in the LOE community, and you can always send me a direct message, or you can post a question and tag me, and I'll be happy to find the answer and get back to you. So thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.